Alright, what's going on, guys? It's Chad, back on some more Modern Warfare 2. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Basically, everything that I talked about on Saturday's video, this was before the UFC event and the Super Bowl, and really, it's not even like I'm pretending I'm Mystic Mac or some shit. It's just who I think will win and who I want to win. That's just how I explain it every time. In terms of the UFC event, Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev. Great, such a better fight than I thought it was, man. The little engine that could. I'm so proud of Volk, man. Volk's stock rises in this fight. Now, Volk did end up losing this fight by a unanimous decision, but it's a little bit more debatable than that, and it's not. You could argue split decision. You could also make the argument where Volk actually won 3 of the 5 rounds instead of just 2 of them. There were some people that think Islam ended up winning 4 of the 5 rounds. I don't agree with that. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think 48-47 either way makes sense. So this fight, if Volk lost, it was for the pound for pound ranking. But the thing is, Volk showed out so much so. I get it, he lost. How could he show out if you lost? But funny enough, everybody was thinking that Islam would be the one that was winning in the grappling exchanges. Turns out that Volk was actually the one that was winning in a lot of the grappling exchanges. Even when he ended up in one of the worst positions he could possibly be in, with a guy as strong and as good at submissions as Islam, he had Volk's back for like 3 minutes in a body triangle. And this is how I could tell that, like, some people think you can just like spin your way out of a body triangle or something. That's just not how it works. Like I was saying, my brain was screaming that Islam would win, and he did win, but my heart wanted Volk to win. And in my eyes, I feel like Volk won that fight. Round by round, maybe not. With the 10-9 scoring system, all that stuff, maybe not. But damage-wise, all that other stuff, yeah, I feel like if there was a 6th round even, for example, I don't know if Islam would have made it. It's just situations like that. And in a lot of pound for pound discussion, kind of think of this scenario in your head where you take somebody that's much smaller, but then put them into a similarly sized body. And would they win that fight? If Volk was similarly sized in terms of like just weight, if he was like 10-15 pounds heavier, like naturally just 10-15 pounds heavier, he doesn't even need to be taller. It's pound for pound, not inch for inch. Islam was expected to dominate and he didn't, so his stock kind of actually takes a hit. This reminds me of the Chimaev fight. But back before Chimaev fought Gilbert Burns, everybody was saying that he was going to be triple champion and that he was going to run Gilbert Burns over, and no one was giving any respect to Gilbert Burns. He didn't give a single any of his accolades. It was crazy disrespect. And then they face somebody that actually gives them a hard time, and because they had built them up into like this invincible machine, as soon as they don't look as invincible, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, that looks so bad. What's wrong with him? What is he doing? I think they should run that fight back, but it is what it is. So the little engine that couldn't get it done, but he definitely wasn't dominated. Where everybody thought Islam would win in the grappling, Volk ended up winning in grappling. And everybody who thought that Volk was going to win in the stand-up, Islam ended up winning in the stand-up. It makes you wonder now if Volk has actually laid the blueprint to actually figure out this style, to figure out how to beat it. Me personally, I think Volk is still #1 pound for pound. I don't think he lost his #1 pound for pound spot. He was taking more of a challenge than Islam was. Just off rip from a baseline, he has to start from a lower position from Islam, and he still put up that much of a fight. I don't think Islam would have been able to do that. If Islam were to be the one to move up, I don't know, it's just more impressive. It just is. He doesn't even have the attributes to make you feel like he should be as good as he is, but he is. So to me, that's more impressive than even having attributes and then turning something into that. He took, like, not that being short isn't an attribute, but talk about reach and all this other stuff, and some of the greatest champions of all time all have like reaches, all sorts of like crazy good physical attributes, strength, speed, something. But being this undersized, but then being strong, if not stronger than a dude that everyone is saying is insanely strong to everyone in a division above you, is more impressive than beating somebody in the division below you. It just is. It's just how it works. That's just a fact. If somebody had to choose whether they wanted to be Islam or Volk in this scenario, and they had to do that fight themselves, they would have chosen themselves to be Islam himself, because he was more likely to win that fight based on just his overall size. Anyway, enough about that fight. Was a good fight. Happy for Volk. Still #1 pound for pound. Not happening. Eagles versus Chiefs Super Bowl. The Eagles ended up losing, I think it was like 3 points. It was like 38-35, something like that. What's the score? Dude, and everybody was talking about the halftime show, saying that it was like not good. I thought it was pretty good. I thought Rihanna was great. At 38-35. I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember who even played in last year's Super Bowl. Like they're like, this Super Bowl halftime wasn't memorable. Can I be honest with you? I don't remember what the last Super Bowl halftime even was. I literally don't remember it. I don't remember who even played in the Super Bowl, and I don't even remember what halftime show there was. The last halftime that I remember was like Katy Perry and that shark. Every other Super Bowl since that point, including their halftime shows, completely wiped from my brain. Like in my head, they literally didn't happen. It is unimportant information to my brain apparently, because it just doesn't hang on to it. Oh, you guys want to leave as soon as I go full auto? It's so annoying. But as soon as I pull full auto like you leave? I had nothing really to like point towards it other than just my gut feeling that the game was going to be a blowout. But it wasn't. I was saying if the Eagles didn't blow them out, the Eagles would get blown out. They didn't get blown out. It was a close game. It was a good game until the final moments. There was a penalty that was thrown, and it was so bad to the point where even Critical is sitting there making a video talking about it like, dude, is this rigged. Now, I'm not saying that like the Chiefs didn't earn this or anything like that. They absolutely had the momentum, and just because that penalty was called doesn't mean that the Eagles would have won. What that penalty did though was basically make it so the Eagles had absolutely no chance. There's a thing that people say all the time with a lot of pass interference calls, especially in these kind of scenarios. It's called, quote, let them play, because the ball was already uncatchable, and whether he did hold or not, there are real actual blatant holds out there that are not just like a rub and go or slight contact, which is something that just happens. If you watch sports, you know this. But the league, a lot like the judges, they have kind of like an officiating problem. The judging is kind of an issue. It's hard though, because there's a lot of nuance with a lot of the rules and stuff that we're doing. Even if we introduce some robot to go and like analyze everything and just be the end all be all no matter what it does, it still doesn't have the capacity to be able to understand nuance and understand the situation and the gravity of things. Regardless, I'm not even gonna be mad about it. GG to them. I'm not even heartbroken by it. Like, again, like I was saying, I got one Super Bowl. I thought I was gonna live and die without seeing a single Super Bowl for the Eagles. Them winning that Super Bowl back in 2017, whatever it was, is the most perfect way to win a Super Bowl. The most perfect Super Bowl win in the history of Super Bowl wins. No controversial calls, outplayed on both sides of the ball. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't need anything else. It's all good. It's greedy. To me, in my opinion, it's kind of greedy to want that many Super Bowls. It's actually kind of weird. Everybody acts like the Super Bowl means so much, but then are completely disregarding other Super Bowls just when a couple years pass. Like, if Super Bowls really meant that much, weird. In one breath, people will act like winning the Super Bowl is the biggest, like, greatest accomplishment possible. But then in that same breath, completely discredit all other teams' like Super Bowl wins and talk about in that same vacuum where they try to build up the integrity of Super Bowl wins, they also tear it down. So I know that even if the Eagles won this Super Bowl, people would still discredit them literally in the next year, or the year after that, or 5 years, or 10 years down the road. They'll just be like, oh yeah, but you haven't been there in 10 years. It's just like how everybody in the NFC East has more Super Bowl wins than the Eagles, but no one actually cares unless it's part of like their argument. Everyone just moves on to the next year and acts like all of the other Super Bowls and beforehand just like didn't happen. You guys are like constantly gaslighting yourselves on like the importance of games. Are they important or not? If they're so important, then why are teams even having trash talk to them then if they have won the Super Bowl? So that must mean that the Super Bowl doesn't actually mean that much. And if the Super Bowl doesn't actually mean that much, then the game just doesn't mean anything. I said this when the Eagles ended up winning too, that people would just end up discrediting Super Bowls regardless. It was a good game and then just kind of got ruined at the end. I feel bad for the Chiefs fans in that scenario. I know that it would have been the Eagles if the Eagles had won anyway, but I still feel bad for the Chiefs fans because this is all that's ever going to be brought up whenever this game is brought up. And you can sit there and be like, haha, it's cope, whatever. But like, literally no one will let you enjoy this. I'm just saying. It's just how sports are. They won't let you enjoy it either. It's a shame that the officiating can have this much of an effect on the game. It's a shame that that kind of call happened at that point in time in the game. And because of the inconsistencies in refereeing, I'm not saying it's not a hold. I'm just saying the inconsistencies in reffing, that should not have been called. And instead of celebrating that Super Bowl, you have to sit there and argue with people about what is and isn't a pass interference. So have fun with that, I guess. Modern Warfare 2 Warzone 2 Season 2 launch trailer. New DMZ missions. I mean, they're not even going to show anything new in here. It's just, right? There's nothing special. Maps, modes, more. Dome 6v6 map. Infected. This feels so long and drawn out. Well, they did delay it 2 weeks, but I wonder what the delay really was for. What did they accomplish in that 2 weeks? I'm curious. What would this update have looked like without the 2 weeks? I'm very curious. Is it like an optimization thing? I've never seen someone be so consistently wrong about every single sports prediction ever. I love it. It's gonna be a blowout. Ganon. You're not a psychic. A prediction is a guess. You're not intelligent, Ganon. Nothing that I'm like sitting here betting my house on it or anything. It's just saying who I think will win. Who gives a fuck? Actually actively think about my predictions as you're watching these games. You're in the head. It doesn't matter if I'm wrong because nobody was correct. Nobody said that the Super Bowl would be won through a terrible penalty. No one. Anyway, yeah, update comes out in 2 days. I think I'll have an Elden Ring video up tomorrow. I planned on doing it today, but I woke up like at this weird time and I have to go do stuff. So yeah, anyway, it was a great weekend, great events all the way through. It was fun. A little bit of drama and controversy that we'll have to sit here and listen to for months on end now. And it'll just be talked about until we're all incredibly sick of it. The world continues to go round.